Good evening. You're listening to Adrenaline Radio, 1680 on your AM dial, for those who have a dial. My name is Fred Blanchard. I'm your host for Adrenaline Motorsports. And this evening, we're going to kind of touch bases on a little bit of everything. I had the privilege this last weekend to go to the El Mirage Dry Lakes, and when I say it's a privilege, it's the beginning of Southern California Timing Association speed trials once a month, and usually the first event is a big one because a lot of the new machinery comes out that are involved, the fellows that are involved, and ladies too, by the way. They're involved in the land speed racing sport. And El Mirage Dry Lake, in case some of you folks are not familiar with, is located near the community of the main community, I guess, would be Victorville, but the closer community would be a community called Adelanto. And there is actually a town of El Mirage, and it's out in the desert, and most of those who participate in the land speed sport kind of work on their vehicles the off season, pretty much during the winter months, and hoping that it rains substantially to smooth the lake bed out. And how that happens is that they hope that it rains where it covers the bed substantially, and then as the winds come, they kind of blow the water back and forth, and it actually levels the dry lake out, if you want to know the truth. And what has happened in the last few years is what has taken place is that the Bureau of Land Management has decided to make a park out of the area, and what they have succeeded in doing is actually paving a road to the dry lake. In the early days, of course, there weren't any paved roads, and when you entered the dry lake as we knew it back in the day, that it had the resemblance of what's called a washboard. And as you drove your vehicle and trailer and towed your car across all this, by the time you got to the dry lake, everything that you had bolted down pretty much vibrated loose. And you had to do some maintenance on the dry lake before you even got to run your car. But, I mean, it was brutal. I mean, it had turns every which way to get you in the direction you needed to go. And it was quite brutal. But since that time, they've realized that people now are more involved with off-road sports. And we see an abundance of different vehicles arrive there at the dry lakes. Not only SCTA, of course, with land speed in their mind, but you have the others that are off-roaders with the quads and the motorcycles. And the lake bed is quite large and is big enough for just about everybody. But since they had gone ahead and paved the road, they also created a visitor center, which is something that we never thought would happen from the early days. I was fortunate enough as a young man to be out there back in the 50s watching some of these cars run, and it was not the most pleasant experience you ever had, but it was a good thing and a big thing to go out to the lakes to watch these guys run at high speed. And today, now, it's becoming an attraction. I wouldn't say a tourist attraction, but it's an attraction, and people show up, and they have a center out there that the Bureau of Land Management has, and some items in a visitor center. You can go in and look at what's going on. The only other thing that's occurred there that some of the folks have not been happy too much with was that they're now charging a fee to come aboard the dry lake for the day. And that's for the maintenance and keeping it clean and picking up all the trash and that type of thing. And that's one of the things that I found that was the most unusual initially when I started attending some of these events, is that land speed racers look after themselves, they pick up after themselves, and they don't leave a mess on the lake bed, and which is a real plus. I pretty much, and I've met quite a few fine people there, and they take care of what's out there, and it gives us a place to race every month for a few months out of the year. And of course, in the middle of the season for dry lakes racing, then the dry lakes is everybody moves to the land speed racing capital of the world, which is the Bonneville Salt Flats, but we can get into that a little bit later. I got a little bit to talk about there as well. But I attended the event, and I went specifically to go to the tech area where they inspect all the vehicles. There's some new rules coming up that are very important to land speed racers. And one of the safety devices that has been in the forefront here in the last couple of years, a device called the Hans device. And I was quite curious about that only because it's going to be mandatory this coming year, not this year, but next year. And there's a whole variety of manufacturers out there trying to devise a component that works with every type of vehicle. And as you know, if you've looked at any of the pictures of land speed race cars, you can see that they're quite confined and they're very low to the ground, and the driver's almost in lying down position. And to have a device of that kind is quite difficult. And so it's in the process of being developed. And the key to the Hans device basically is, the theory behind it is that if you were to have an impact of some way, shape, or form, they found in motorsports racing when your head moves forward at speed, it weighs a considerable amount of pounds. I think somebody told me about 26 to 36 pounds, I think a human head weighs. But in motion, at speed, it weighs considerably more. And it would have a tendency to cause major injuries to you if you didn't have some restraining device, and this is what this Hans device is all about. And the samples that I saw while I was standing there with the inspectors checking cars was a device that wraps around your shoulders, your waist, and attaches to your chest with a series of belts. And on the portions on your shoulders is a little metal hook that attaches to your helmet, and your helmet has little cables on it. And the intent of that is to keep your head from swinging forward. And that was one of the newest devices. Not that it's going to be approved for the coming year, but it's currently being accepted as trying to find the best direction for this. But my understanding after talking to some of the inspectors, this product may be not the one that they're going to decide to use, and the requirements are going to be a little more stringent. Some new developments in those areas have came about over the winter months, and that'll be published here in the not too distant future. And but that was one of the reasons I went, because as I mentioned early on in various other broadcasts, that I have a land speed car also, and it's a Lakester. And with this Lakester, that device is going to be required, and the speeds that we intend to attempt to reach are in the records of our particular class is 334 miles an hour. But none of that can be attained there to dry lakes. The course is substantially shorter, basically. But at Bonneville, we have the opportunity, if all goes well with the project as we see it today. But that Hans device is one of the key things that they're talking about, and they try to keep the race cars as safe as they possibly can through a series of inspections. They look at the slower speed cars. They pretty much have one inspector going over the cars that don't exceed more than 130, 150 miles an hour. And they check all the safety devices and the brakes and the things that they have on those cars. As the cars get sleeker and more intense force, that type of speeds that they increase up to the 200 mile an hour range, 250 in that range, then you have a couple of inspectors review the cars, and they in turn go from end to end, and they check all types of things. They're looking at the lug bolts, for an example. You have a wheel stud that attaches your wheel slide over, and then they're held on by lug nuts, which are large diameter nuts, about an inch in diameter. But they like to see that you have full contact with that fastener, as an example. They also look at the suspension of the car, if they are suspended, to be sure that if something were to happen, if a tire blows out or something like that, that your steering's not impaired in any way, shape, or form, and you're able to slow the car down in some manner. and things of this nature. They have fire systems on board these cars, as I mentioned early on. So I was there to see all of this, and if any changes were to occur, I'd like to get firsthand knowledge before we run our vehicle, and that was the intent of my visit.